All right, so it's 7:05. We'll start. We'll kick off. Welcome everyone to Sips, Stories, and Sanity. I came up with it. If you know me and my writing, I'm a fan of alliteration, so it kind of really worked. And we'll be taking some sips of wine. We'll definitely be telling some stories from the road and travel, and we'll of course all be a little more, a little bit of sanity based on this. Because we get, so if we go to the next, oh, yeah, man. So there it is. I just wanted to put it up there and give you guys some expectations. So sips, we're going to taste wines. I'm going to sip these 6 wines. We're going to talk about them. If you have wines in front of you from these countries or these regions, I'll ask questions too. You could talk about them as well. We're going to, each slide will show you a little bit about what the experts think. So I highlighted 1 or 2 things in bold that really caught my eye that was of interest of why I selected them. You'll see that, and then I'll share my thoughts. When we move into the stories aspect, why did I pick these 6 wines in these 6 countries? Well, one of the first things is I've traveled to all of these countries, so I have a story from all of them. I'm very fortunate to be able to visit these 6 European countries, and actually all 6 appear in my 2021 travel calendar. For some reason, maybe it was the fact that a trip to Portugal was canceled for me this past year in 2020. I really wanted to take the opportunity to visit Europe again, to go back to the old continent for me, you know, where a lot of my heritage is, and actually explore it, but explore it through different ways. So wine was certainly a way, and I'll share, you'll see the images that are in the calendar from where they are, and they kind of relate to the stories of what I'll be telling as well. And then of course, there's the sanity aspect. It's the season. We're here to celebrate, you know, maybe we're celebrating the fact that 2020 is coming to an end. Maybe we're celebrating Christmas, you know, the season.
It's the season. You could do it.
But certainly time to celebrate. So hopefully we get an appreciation up on that. So, all right. So we'll head off to the first look at the wines. You guys haven't seen it. So these are the 6 wines. And the reason why I put the price on here is because, one, this is where if you bought the wines from Wired from Wine, I'm an affiliate. That's where I picked the wines from. I just want to give you guys an understanding of what it costs. So if you have this wine, if you get it cheaper, great. But just to let you know what we're doing and where it is in the ballpark of what you could get it delivered to your door at. So there, and then the names of the 6 wines are right here on this page. And these are the holiday wines that I selected. So once we go, let's jump right in. We'll head to Portugal. All right, so Portugal. Why Portugal? Well, Portugal is the first wine. It's actually the cover of my calendar, as you'll see. But I decided to start out here in the Vinho Verde region. And what really attracted me to this wine was the fact that, one, I mean, we're starting out with 90 points. I always like to get A's on my exams. Didn't always. But when a wine gets an A in my world, you know, I like it. So we'll give it a shot. And actually what also stuck out to me was the fact that it was a best buy. I find that you can really find value in the Iberian Peninsula. So if you go to Portugal, if you go to Spain, which we hit later on in this trip through the wines, we can find some value there, and it's always available for us to find. So it wasn't a surprise to me that you find Best Buy here. But yeah, so I'm going to taste this. This is a nice, if I'm going to pronounce it right, the Alveida Alvarinho 2019. So let's everyone, if you have some, cheers. See if we get a smell. Yeah, I mean, it smells a little bit like me as a, kind of reminds me of a Sauvignon Blanc to start off, very much so. Let me get another little taste there, yeah. It definitely has a good finish. It's not sharp. I mean, mine's been sitting out for a little bit. It's a little chilled, but I definitely appreciate this wine. I could see, you know, at its price point of 15, I could see it as it is the best value. I guess one of the other things that really stuck out to me when I thought about this Portuguese wine and why I found it was that it picks up oysters. I mean, I'm sensing myself, not picks up oysters in the taste, but it pairs well with them, according to the expert. And I wanted to, this past weekend, I had family in town. And we actually had oysters a few times. So I haven't had them in a while, but I know it's a great month to get them, December. And maybe for the holidays, some of us will be getting oysters at times. So if we are, I mean, is this wine, is it going to work with it? And I think I'm not going to go against the expert there. I really think it has something there. I can feel it going with a little bit of that kind of the character of an oyster. Oh. So is everyone muted or is my?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
You want to hear me doing some commentary?
Yeah, sure. I'll do commentary. I think it's better. So, all right, so we'll unmute. If I don't know if anyone's drinking this wine. It's hard for me to see across the way, but if anyone has this wine, if they have thoughts on it, or if they have a similar wine or have been to this region, if you go to the next slide, okay, you could see the. Oh, sorry. Okay, go ahead. I'm sorry.
That was probably me just taking a gasp. I was just gasping because you're bringing back memories with those pictures.
And I think that's one of the things that wine does, especially for the next wine when we get to the next country. For me, it's a classic moment. I mean, but if you go back, I'm sorry, go back one. So in the upper right corner, you can see the region of where it is in Portugal. And on every slide, you'll see this. So you see that's a map of the country. We know Portugal. And the actual region is up there in the upper left coast. So it's on the coast there in the northern Spain. And that's where this grape is grown, the Vinho Verde.
In Portugal.
In Portugal. Correct. The grape is on there as well, the varietal, and you'll see the alcohol is 12.5. One of the things you'll see in the alcohol level, just to give you guys an understanding throughout, is it's listed on each one. Typically, the higher the alcohol is the drier. So if we're getting into 14% alcohol, it's a good chance that it's not going to be a sweet wine. As if something is below 12, it have the opportunity for sweeter wines like that. So that's something to always take a note of when you don't know a wine. You could always take a look at what's the alcohol content on there. If you want to try to avoid or try to get sweeter wines, it's up to you. Like there's two different types of wine drinkers out there for sure. But if you go to the next page, it'll tell you a little bit about Portugal.
It's very good. Yeah.
Okay, so Portugal. So as I mentioned, with every country, we're going to do a culture through cuisine or a moment like that. And Portugal, for me, if I'm going to take a food tour, of course, I'm going to recommend the Florida Keys food tour down here in Almirada. That's where I'm a guide. So I take people on that food tour. But if I had a second choice, or if I had one, it would definitely be the food tour I took in Lisbon. And some of those images on the left side of the screen are from that food tour, and it's where we stopped in for wine. The actual food tour was 8+ hours long. It was supposed to be 6, but we're on Lisbon time, and it was all day. And actually, it would have went longer if I didn't have to leave for dinner somewhere. But the food, we did a lot of wine. There's also a ginger wine, which is actually made of sour cherries, which is an interesting wine to get there. And there's a lot more. If you look at that map of Portugal, which is new discoveries for me. Because for me, Portugal was always Vinho Verde, which we've sampled here, as well as also port wine, right? Port is from Portugal. But were there other wines? And actually, when you're in Lisbon, they never drink the Vinho Verde. If you see, he's pouring a red in that one picture there with the tray of cheeses, and that was a more local wine to the Lisbon area. So it was very interesting to discover that on my long tour. And I took that tour with Culinary Backstreets. So if you do go to Lisbon again, and you're a foodie, definitely look that tour up. It's not cheap, but remember, it will be the entire day, and it's eating and drinking, alcoholic beverages, everything. So it's definitely comes recommended. And if you look at the calendar over there, if you look at the bottom, that'll be on every page. That's the cover. The cover is from Lisbon as well. That's the Plaza Comercial. So that's on there. But I just took the street. Remember, the whole focus of the calendar is Europe by foot. So that is walking down the streets there in Lisbon, the actual city. So you'll capture that. So it's not, the calendar itself, as you'll notice, is not all the top attractions of the European destinations. It's not about those, iconic spots that put the city on the map, but it's more about Europe traveling by foot when you're walking around. Because I think that's where we have the memories of the good food when we want to go back, and when we're sipping wine in one of these cafes and stuff. That's exactly what we want. And when I was in Portugal and Lisbon, even though it was against their advice, I did have some Vinho Verde. So that's Portugal. Does anyone have any questions or comments about the wine or even the destination they might want to add?
Hey, Craig. The thing that we found about Portugal, we went to Douro Valley and we went to Porto and drank plenty of the port wines. And the Vino Verde, we never thought, we only heard bad things about it, but it's incredibly inexpensive and crisp and fresh. And it's just a great everyday drinking wine. We were really surprised by that. But the biggest challenge in Portugal, besides not eating all those pasta stanadas, is trying to figure out all the varietals. The varietals, there's so many of them. It's so complicated when they blend those. How did you find it easy to get a grasp on all those varietals?
No, in my second trip there was supposed to be more of the wine region itself. And I was not there, but I did learn from actually my Traveling Through Wine podcast. I had someone on, I don't know if you had a chance to listen to it, but it will be a link that I'll share. It's she was a WSET level 3 with distinction, Diane. And she provided some insight on that because we talked a little bit about Portugal. But she was like, it's so many of the varietals are just not found anywhere else in the world. So many of the grapes that are grown there are just this, unique to that region. So it's hard to, there's just no other way to study it, I guess, but we need to do a field trip there and understand the grapes or to know someone who's from there. I know they have great river cruises down in Portugal on the river there. So that's something that might be on my radar for future travel plans, especially get the opportunity to hit the wineries. But in Portugal, it's so much unknown. As you can see on the map there's so many different spots. And he was telling me about some of the varietals. And I know I had some when we were drinking there, but I can't remember because this was one of our last stops on that food tour. And it was a long day of eating and drinking. So a lot of that was just chalked up to good memories as opposed to distinct memories, unfortunately. But yeah, no, it's a great question. All right, that's Portugal. If everyone had a taste. So now what we were talking about before as we go into the next country is Greece. We all know Greek had wine for millennia, so it goes back a long way. And Greece is actually, and I've had a lot of distinct wines there, and I drank a lot of craft wine a lot of times, and it was good. It was table wine more or less, but it was the trip to Santorini that actually changed my just appreciation for Greek wine. And it actually all comes down to a particular grape itself, which is the Assyrtiko, which is what they grow in Santorini. And Santorini, if you don't know, it's a beautiful island with views. I'm sure you've seen photographs of it. There's some on the next page, but it provides this volcanic soil, which the grapes grow into. And there's I was asking in the same podcast that we were just talking about, Traveling Through Wine, I reshared an interview from my podcast, which was about Santorini itself. I just put it back on there because we went to one of the wineries there and actually talked to her. And I was like, how do you even get water enough to grow anything on this island? Because it's a bit of a desert if you've been there. It's very dry. And the actual roots of this grape grow so deep into the ground. So when they grow so deep into volcanic soil, I don't know, but for me, volcanic soil, whether it's fruits, whether I'm growing tomatoes, whether it's rum in Mexico or tequila, like whatever is grown pretty much in volcanic soil seems to be delicious, or it just contain a certain number of nutrients and tastes that are very unique. It's South Africa is another place with very old soil as well, which has some similarities to that, but just this volcanic soil was found here in Santorini. And with the grapes roots growing in 20 to 40 feet into the ground, they're really searching for any kind of life and any kind of symbol of any kind of nutrients and water, and they bring that into the grapes. So that's why I love this wine. And also it's a great opportunity for me when we were talking before about how it takes me back to a particular place. There's never a time where I have a glass of this. When I see it on a menu, I get excited because I feel like I could be back in Santorini and actually taking a sip. So you have the mineralness there. Let's take a sip of this. You can even see some of these little bubbles in here. Reminds me a bit of agave wine from Italy. Craig,
while you're sipping on that, it it brings me back to when we were touring around the island there, that they have the way the grapes grow and those little bundles on the ground, just amazing. It looks like tumbleweeds. And
They don't grow high off the ground. They grow deep into the soil. And
yeah,
the roots grow so deep.
Good.
Like 20 to 40 feet or when I was down there. And it's definitely hear her how she talks about it. And to visit, if you go to Santorini and spend time, like anywhere, I would recommend going to the vineyards. It's just because you get an appreciation of what it takes to grow things there, what it takes for seasons there, what it takes for appreciation for the land, and also appreciation of time, you know, and they explain all the different wines and along those lines. And yeah, the grapes are just so very unique that they're definitely interesting. So what do we think of this? I mean, I see this with the fish as well. I mean, I see myself in Santorini just before sunset, sitting down and having one of these.
Oh, amen. to that.
Mm.
I'm not getting much on the smell for me.
Yeah, I got
Oh,
this
yeah.
smell.
But again, the taste is very smooth and flat, and you can tell that I've had quite a bit of this one actually, because it's I'm able to drink it with a bit more volume. I guess it just takes me back to there. We'll see how I hold up on all these glasses as we continue. Maybe that's part of the fun for everyone. But go to the next page. We'll talk a little bit about Santorini. Santorini's in the calendar. You can see that's the January photo from the calendar on the right side. On the left side, I just talk about a few things in Santorini that's up there. This is what I would see this, you know, when I envision myself having a late afternoon lunch, getting some of the fish that they caught, and of course the Greek salad from there. But one of the interesting things I found in Santorini from a culinary standpoint, which was a surprise for me, was that I eat a lot of gyros in New York and all that stuff. But when you order a gyro in Greece, prepare for it to be pork, not lamb. Lamb is actually looked at differently, especially when in the islands. Whether I was sailing on the Ionian side, like getting lamb is, you know, is a bit more of a specialty here in these islands. You know, getting anything that needs pasture. You know, a lot of the stuff is shipped in. So a lot of the pork was all the gyros were done in pork, and it just made me think of like, wow, how would I change my pairing if I'm having a pork gyro if I was going to drink wine with it instead of a mythos beer in the afternoon. But that's just something to take note from a culinary perspective from when you're traveling to Santorini and or Greece. There's also, again, I mentioned there's a podcast on the Santorini as well that you could listen to if you're interested in more information on that. All
And
right.
also, Craig, the Greek salads have no lettuce. It's just tomatoes and green peppers and cucumbers, but no lettuce.
Yes, and often a lot of
Not like here.
often a lot of feta cheese if it's good, right?
Oh, yeah, a big chunk of feta cheese with oil on top.
What's interesting to notice, if you can see from those photos, if you can see on your screen, is actually the capers. Capers are really substantial size compared to the capers that I'm used to here getting in the States. Not let alone what I was talking about before, the volcanic soil is like, you taste the tomatoes, it's just a different type of salad. I remember going, it's like you want to order a salad, where a lot of times in the States, sometimes you go out and you're like, I'm going to get a salad to be healthy. Like there you're getting a salad because, wow, I can't wait to have the tomatoes and taste them. Maybe that's just me and my tomatoes. It's very important.
And the olives.
Olives as well, especially the Calmettas.
Yes.
The
Yeah.
Calmetta olives, of course, the best olive there is. Sorry for my Spanish French. but
Overseas Kitchen.
the best olive that there is.
Yeah, I think it's Overseas Kitchen in Isla Morada they have the Greek salad, a real one, and then they have the lettuce one too.
It's also Old Tavernier. Old
Old
Tavernier.
Tab, yeah.
Old Tavernier
Yes,
has the
they
same
have
thing.
this Greek salad both ways,
no
with and
lettuce.
without lettuce. Yeah,
Without the lettuce, yes.
yeah.
Yes.
You have
Is
to
the
ask
better call.
Yeah, you gotta
authentic Greek. You have to ask for.
Invented Greek sound.
Authentic.
Authentic. It is authentic.
Yeah.
Mm.
All right, let's just, yeah, we'll move on. We have 6 things to go through. All right, so France. So France, I could have chose a lot of different wines, obviously, right? I mean, France is a mecca of wines. There's a lot of information on this one because of the reason why I chose it. But I could have chose a Bordeaux, you know, and put it into the reds. But I didn't want to go there. Actually, I could have put a Bordeaux in the whites. which I thought about doing too, just to show a curveball, because most people just assume a Bordeaux is a red, but actually Bordeaux, like in France, they're all named for the region or the place that they're from. So you can get white wines in Bordeaux, but we didn't choose a Bordeaux. I actually chose something down in Provence, and I needed a rosé, and this one popped up at me. It screamed at me because it's a rosé that's served at a Michelin star restaurant, 3 stars actually, 11 Madison, which is 11 Madison Park, which is a restaurant in New York that I'm quite familiar with. Not as familiar as I'd like to be by dining there often, but of course it's a restaurant that's always on top restaurant lists, award-winning accolades. And this is a bottle that they would serve there and actually put it open into the market to make it available. So I was like, well, let's try it. Let's see how good the wines are in these restaurants. Let's see how we enjoy them. So this rosé is actually also the other exciting thing that pointed out to me was that this rosé was certified organic farming. So I wanted to, I eat organic as much as I can. I mean, I'm really trying to follow that path. It's not, it's, you know, especially when you go out to eat, it could be a challenge, but organic wine, organic farmed wine, maybe it makes a difference. Let's find out. Oh, it smells good.
That's really good.
We got it. Downstairs or something. I really want to open all the bottles.
Oh, wow.
How is it?
It's got a good, I really taste a lot of fruit on the backside in the swallow. Like there's a lot of taste. A lot of times it's a smell in the initial taste, but this one has.
Perfect for cheese and all the time. It's perfect for everything.
Yeah, I don't know. I remember I've read so many things that popped in my head. It is very, very, very smooth. I mean, I could see why they serve it there. The other thing that really popped out to me when I was reading about the different wines was the fact that this pairs well with coconut shrimp for backyard. Yeah, I believe it was on there. If I have it.
Oh, okay.
Restaurant grade, which I was like, well, I think we could all cook restaurant grade, right? I don't know exactly what that meant, but fried coconut shrimp is something that we get a lot here in the Florida Keys. If we decide, we have great shrimp down here, Key West pinks, Key West rosés, maybe we should call them. I'm not sure, but Key West pinks, and then we could actually try these with that and make it a coconut shrimp is something that I'd be very interested in trying. And perhaps I will, perhaps. But definitely it's very smooth. I think all three of the first 3 wines have been smooth for whites. I haven't noticed much of an aftertaste. Maybe the first one that from Portugal had that initial smell from the wine, but maybe that's just also because it was the first too, as the wines are now breathing a lot more as we move forward. Yeah, I could stay on this one. Order some coconut shrimp.
That it?
Yeah, I got it.
Yeah. Okay.
All right, so that's France. If you go to the next slide in France, we'll talk a little bit about France and we'll bring in the wine. I have a great culinary story about France. And actually these pictures I picked off the web, the ones on the right side, because when my travels to France, I did not have a digital camera. So all my images was unable to put up in here. That's how long ago it's been since I've been there. And actually for the calendar, I asked a friend who moved to Paris. She's a travel content creator as well. She's inspired by the lights of Paris. So she sent that photo. So I gave her April in Paris. That's a very famous area in Paris. It's in the 18th arrondissement. And actually it's not too far from Moulin Rouge. There's a lot of poets, writers, artists navigate to that region. But regardless of where you go in France, there's like that, the pink building there is a restaurant today. But you're gonna find restaurants, right? That's why we eat. I've never been such a fan of French cuisine, more of a French wine guy, but not even. Like I find myself still learning and appreciating it the more I go. But when I was there, we followed our guidebooks and we went to this really nice restaurant and got a price fixed menu. And we had to pick an appetizer, an entree, and a dessert, very simple. My friend, who actually, ironically, would rather take a food pill in his life than actually eat. So here I am eating in one of these really nice restaurants with a guy that really doesn't like to eat. But regardless, also, he actually took multiple years of French and he knew everything about the artists. When we went into the museums, he was like a tour guide for me. It was amazing. But when we needed to talk in money and exchange, or we needed to talk numbers or food, he was terrible. He just didn't know anything. So the waiter came over, and this is back a long time ago. They're not speaking English to us. They gave us the menus. We couldn't really read it, but we just figured we'd pick 3 things. We did. I picked something for my appetizer. It did not work out well. So I did the old-fashioned trick where you like take your fork and you kind of mush it around a little bit, take a bite, and then you move forward and you like pretend that you ate more than you ate. Then the waiter comes back after he took my tray and is like, listen, this chef, and I didn't know what he was saying, but thank God we were sitting next to a table with a gentleman, a doctor from Italy who translated for us. And he said, they're asking you to pick another appetizer because the chef does not want you to leave not liking his food. And I'll never forget it. So we had to pick, and then I'm sitting there and I'm like, should I pick something that is safe and go with what my friend picked because his was okay, I tried it, or go off the menu again and stay adventurous? Well, I think you know where I did. I stayed adventurous, and it actually worked out. But it just always left such an impression on me about how much France and this restaurant cares that you like their food. Now, I didn't complain. They just made sure that I left with that appreciation from French cuisine. So it's a funny story that I tell to this day, even if it is almost 20 years old. So what do we think of the rosé or French wines? Anyone out there drinking a French wine have any comments?
Well, for Maggie, I have to say, maintenant, je vais chercher de bon vin à la cave.
Oh,
See, I wish I was eating with you. Whatever that is, I'm pretty sure that would have helped me.
Yeah, we second it.
yeah. You really need to know French when you go in the restaurant there.
You got that one in.
The good news in France is that the wine by the glass is, the house wine anyway, is cheaper than the Diet Coke. So,
I believe that, yeah.
Wow. Oh, yeah, I believe that.
And that's why the 14-year-olds drink the wine. I mean, I know when I was 14, I might have had a glass of wine or two as part of a project. I'm sure my parents will deny it. But
Your parents had it, my
Yeah. All those tables. They're empty.
so that is the rosé, and of course we had to have a rosé in there, and that's from France. Actually, very very likable rosé. It is, you know, it's pricey. We could have picked a lot cheaper one, but you know, sometimes you gotta. That's what this is. This is the season. We're celebrating. These are the values. So definitely worth it. You know, for yourselves at home for sure.
No what?
Hold on. Keeping in the interest of time, keeping it to an hour. So we're gonna move into Italy. Now, Italy.
We didn't have an Italian one.
It's got plenty of regions of wine as well. And Italy is a challenge for many of us as well. But what I decided to choose was a classic, as I like to call it, a Chianti Classico. And actually, what I didn't mention on the rosé was that was a 95-point wine. As I look at the Italian Chianti based by Wine Enthusiast, this was scored 92 points. So, I mean, these are good wines. And I'm sure you guys could read, you know, the points if they're up there. I put them on all the slides if you're looking. But, you know, 92 points. It's served in the grill and pool room. I mean, poured by the glass. So this is a glass wine in a nice place. The thing that attracted me to this was the taste of holidays, actually, I was looking for. And I saw the fact that, like, does this taste like Christmas a little bit? It has nutmeg. It has licorice. So I read it and I wanted to try it because, I mean, I'm looking for something to have over Christmas that kind of reminds me of it. I like my toddies, you know, I love other things in that as well. But I'm like, oh, it'd be nice to have a wine. So I saw that and I was like, well, let's try it. So, all right, let's try it.
And the rest is history.
Your parents are totally.
Craig, I'm working with the impaired here and we're still trying to get the bottle open.
All right, impair
Okay,
this.
now, slow it down. Slow it down. We're like having a problem here.
So you guys, all right, yeah.
Still trying to get the bottom. Sarah, you gotta open 6. You better, yeah, keep working your arms there.
Just keep going.
Right.
But you don't have to finish it. You know, you just have to take a sip. But yeah.
Already finished most
Oh my
of them.
God, here it is, a
That's where we were going wrong.
We thought we had to finish every
I'm sure they're getting better then. I assume they're getting better and better. So I don't smell, I don't know if my sense, I don't smell the licorice or the nutmeg or anything. What I did like is this is, it's from the Tuscany region, but it's definitely not super Tuscan at all. It's kind of a lighter wine, which is why it's in the 4-hole, because I think our next red will be a little more robust.
This Sangiovese, this is drinking wonderful. This is the only exact match I have. And this is drinking so nice, smooth, delicious. And for me, which we'll get more, maybe in Rioja, we'll get more of this cherry, but I love the cherry. I'm picking up some cherry on this. It's just delicious.
I'm not picking up the nutmeg, as mentioned. And I use nutmeg often, actually, so I'm surprised. I feel like there would be heavy, it would be in there, right? What's that?
Very good.
Fishes one?
I think it's very good.
Yeah. What is that? 7 fishes dinner?
Yes, the 7 fishes dinner. We'll probably, it'll be back next year because I'm traveling up north this year, so I didn't want to cook a dinner, but I still did a wine thing for the holidays. I can't stop myself. But I decided, so next year you could book your ticket. It'll be back. We'll have some wines, and of course the fishes will be back. The 7 fishes. This actually year in January and February, I'm going to be doing something, a fundraiser as well and making it a total vegan wine pairing. I got 4 dishes that I think even meat lovers and people who don't eat vegan will actually totally appreciate, especially paired with wines that would pair with if it was like a steak instead of mushrooms. And I really think it's going to work. I'm still working on getting 2 more wines that work. But I would expect something in February. And of course, anyone who's local, I'll let them know. It's same as last time, but it'll be a little different, but it should be, it's definitely unique. But all right, so the other thing I found about this wine was if you look up in the corner, oh no, go back to there.
Sorry.
I know I'm slowing down for
Oh, yeah, slow down. Sorry.
Is you can see the region of where it's from, and that's the upper right corner is 2 maps. The first one on the left is actually, that is where the wine is from. But when I look down, and I've given these stats on all of them, and I don't know how to pronounce this, but it's Slavonovian oaks. And I was like, all right, I know French oaks, I know steel, I know American oak. I'm like, what are they putting this wine in, and where is that from? I thought that was an interesting find, and maybe I should have always seen this, but I've never seen it before. But that's actually from the Piedmont guys. So that's in the upper right corner. So it's really up there in that little corner of Italy. That's actually the top of the boot. That's actually where you'll find this, where the oaks are grown, that they actually make these casts. So I thought that was a very unique aspect because it was like a different cast that I've never really been familiar with. And wine, I've learned things, and the more I learn, the more I know nothing. Like it's such a wild west of information out there. There's so many things to understand. So it's definitely a really aspect. So I was like, oh, that's really unique. And you can see this one's 14% alcohol. So we definitely know that it's a little bit drier. And this one does, I agree, it tastes smooth for sure. And if you look at the picture at the end of me toasting you with the wine glass, this is actually the wine that I'm using. So I did sneak a sip of this one first, but all the other ones I'm trying for the first time as we go. But all right, let's go to Italy. I'll tell a story. You can see the calendar as well. The calendar, if you don't know where that is in Europe, then I don't know. But that's actually, it's kind of iconic in a way, but if you walk the streets and over the bridges in Venice, you'll see tons of gondolas. And I was there, it was August. So there was so much traffic. And it was a crowded time, but it was a great time actually to be there. And there's so much on the other side. But if you look at the main photo I put there is of Rome, because I've traveled to many cities and I've lived in New York for a while. And that was one of the greatest, and I might even use that in the past tense, sorry. It was a great city when I was there. Mexico City, I love to take people to one of the best in the world. But when people talk about cities, if I had to pick the top 10, I would certainly pick Rome. It's a very interesting, the eternal city. It really does. And I spent a lot of time up late at night enjoying that city to wee hours of the morning and everything. But I had a friend there, and she took me actually to a restaurant. And it was the only time I've ever gone that wasn't a pop-up place, but you walked into a restaurant that was serving 80 people easy, and there was no menu. And I guess this is things that they do more in Italy, is you just sit down, and it's whatever they have that day is they're serving for you. And it was a pasta place. We had carbonara. They had a couple dishes that you could almost expect, but it was just, that was what it was. And there was no substitutions. There was no anything. You couldn't say anything. It was just like, it was very Roman. It was very to the point. It was very in your face. And it reminds me a lot of Lupa, which is a restaurant in New York, which is Roman as well. They say that they're Roman. And I was there one holidays, actually, at Christmas around that time. My aunt was there, and she wanted to add a little extra sauce. And they were like, well, we don't make extra sauce. We make just the sauce that's right for that dish, and that's it. And that's kind of, I smiled when that happened, because I remembered from Rome. I'm like, wow, they really are a Romanesque place. So it was just a really unique cultural experience for me in Rome. And of course, I am not my friend. I do not take the food pill. I actually enjoy everything. I really had a great dinner there. And I'm sure probably we drank some of the Classico Chianti.
Maybe give Pasta Blanca for Roman city.
Oh, she's
Spain.
oh,
She's on the
and we have someone from a Roman city on the call as well, Blanca. Thank you so much for joining. It's like 1 a.m. there, or close to it. But she's drinking some wines as well, and she's probably very excited for the next country we're about to explore, because that's where she is. All right. So we're going to Spain. We are going to Spain. Does anyone have anything they want to say about Italy before we move on? Anything else? All right. So in Spain, we have, so this is an Especial Rioja 2014 from Muga. And I collected, I love Riojas. I've loved them. And also I will talk to you a little about 2014. I'm sure a lot of us know this, but just in case we don't. So if you notice, the Portuguese wine was 2019. I think Santorini was 2019. We had the Chianti was 2017. This is 2014. So what does all that mean? But just to know that is when, these are all vintages, and these are when the grapes are harvested. So the grapes are harvested in that year. That doesn't mean that this 2014 came out and be sold in 2014. No, because it had to be aged afterwards. And I believe this was aged for at least 26 months. So that's over 2 years. So you probably couldn't get this until like 2017, 2018, 2017, I guess. But 2014 is when it's harvested. So maybe even 2018, depends on the timing of months and stuff like that. And then that obviously changes because Spain is on the same hemisphere as us in October when they harvest usually. But when you go below the equator and stuff like that, the harvest is 6 months in the other direction. So actually all the vintages and things change along those lines of when they're available. But that's just something to keep in mind if you don't know about wines. So when you do look at it, if it doesn't have a vintage, that means that all the grapes are not harvested together in the same year. So it can't be placed on a particular a number, can't be placed on there. So why did I pick Muga and Rioja? Well, my first trip to Spain was actually almost the same time. I did not have digital photos either. It was like 2001. And one of the first spots that we stopped at was to go after Madrid. We flew into Madrid. I wanted to explore the wine regions. I was gaining interest in wines and information. I said, I know Spain had some good wines I didn't know anything about. And ironically, Rioja is such a region that I know I talked about it already, but the Traveling Through Wine podcast talks a little bit twice about it, because both my guests, the sommelier, a local to here in the Florida Keys, as well as my friend from New York, who I mentioned earlier, both talked about Rioja as a place that they either want to go, they drink wines from, or they love. So it's really interesting. They give some insight about the region. But we drove up there and we stopped at Muga. And I think when you go to vineyards, Muga is actually the only vineyard that's on here that I've actually been to personally. And when you go to a vineyard, it leaves an impression on you, bigger than anything. So the impression there was of an amazing tour. And when I look at other vineyards as I go forward, like I cannot not think of Muga as one of the best places that I've been to visit wine, even 20 years later. It wasn't my first. I know we always remember our early stuff, but I mean, it was one of the better ones that I've ever seen, and the tour itself and everything. So it was a really great experience. And so this talks a little bit about the black cherry flavor that we were talking about. And also that, you know, it's crisp with fine tannins. I don't like strong tannins, so we'll see how that goes when we take a sip. The velvety chocolate texture, like it's going to be a little bit stronger. And apparently it says it pairs well with lamb chops. So if anyone I know that has ever visited Spain, there's a couple of people on the call, I think, that love the lamb chops from Spain. So I'm pretty sure that this would be a good wine for you guys when you're enjoying Spain lamb chops. I also took the liberty of pouring it actually into one of these beforehand. If you don't know what this is actually a decanter glass. And really what it does is very simply, just as a quick education, is it allows the wine to have a bigger surface area to breathe and give it oxygen. So I think when you open up a wine, and this wine is, you know, it's not like it's $400 bottle of wine, which of course you'd want a decanter. But of course, this wine is something that it will make a big difference. And if you don't have a total decanter, you could always get something like this. I'm not selling these products or anything. I'm just giving you some insight. This will actually decanter it instantly and gives it that. But of course, nothing beats putting this on the table for a few hours and then pouring it. So this is the first thing I did when I opened the bottle of wines, was open this one and pour it in the decanter. And then I poured it into this glass. And now I'd like to give it a taste. See how it goes. Give it a smell. I would expect a little bit of legs, and I do see some, just because of it's like more robust. I can see the legs coming down. It just means to me that it's going to have some texture. Oh, and I can feel a little bit of that chalkiness that they described at the end. I like that in my wine. I feel like it's like it did something. You know, heck, action. I feel like it's got some action on the texture as well as the flavor, but it's definitely a very smooth wine as well. It's a really good wine. I mean, I expect it to be, and this has got 94 points from James Suckling. So, I mean, again, we had 90, 92, 95. This is 94. I mean, they're going to be quality wines. And I think the 2014, yeah, it really works out. Muga. And I don't know if our Spanish friend maybe should want to say something about, I know you had a Muga too. You didn't have the exact same one, but I don't know if you're still there.
I'm here. I'm enjoying the perfect scale of the different wines, from the light till this one is, I think, is stronger.
Yes, this is definitely much worth it than compared to the other ones, for sure. It has some kick, but it's not over the top. I feel like this is a very drinkable, strong wine. And maybe that's because I've had a glass pretty much going down the line, but.
Especially with lamb chops.
It goes with lamb chops. I mean, when it said that, I thought this would be a winner for certain people in my life that like lamb chops.
Yes.
And there's a couple pictures there. So the lamb chops come out a lot like that, because I've taken those pictures actually in Spain, in Spanish restaurants, with perhaps people that are on the call might be familiar with those plates even. But one of the culinary stories for me is, when I always travel to places, I always like to go to places that have and explore the vineyards. I think that's the way, we talked about it earlier, to really understand the country, to understand the place, the timing. Just there's so much about the seasons and the land and everything. Right. So when we were traveling there, and I got there early, we went to a place close, not too far from Barcelona, as I understand it, but Cordon. They grow a lot of wine in that Catalonia area region in that part of the country. As well. They grow a lot of wine in Spain. So this was the Champagne Cordon. So we went through the tour and it was very memorable, but we were meeting up with a family on the other side and they were on the tour like behind us. So eventually we all get together, and then after you go to wineries, I mean, you want to eat. So we're driving to La Mella, I believe, afterwards, which is a town on the coast of Spain. And we stop for food in this place, and it comes out with and they come out with toast. And the toast, you know, just a regular piece of toast, and it looked hard. And I'm like, that was interesting. But then the plate also had garlic, tomato, and they came out with olive oil in a little thing. And I never seen anything like this, but it totally changed the way that I eat toast from that day in the early 2000s till today. Is I saw my Spanish friends take the garlic and then rub it on hot toast like this. And you could hear it rub in, and then the garlic disappears. Now, you're not going to want to do this and then talk to people, but remember, we're all virtual. So this is great if you ever decide to do it. Then they took pieces of tomatoes, and they took it and they squished it down into, ooh, I think I got my Coke.
Go ahead.
Into the bread, like so. And then they took a little bit of olive oil and put it on top. And then that's how they made their toast. And I'm thinking, oh, I don't know if I can show. I can't see. Yes. So you can see the tomato paste in there, and then the garlic, and that's how they made.
That's called pan tumaca. It's called, the name in Catalonia is pan tumaca.
And it was totally awesome. Totally awesome. And the lamb chops in Spain are beyond any place else in the world. Just so everybody knows. If you like
Especially
lamb
with
chops,
muga.
Spain is the best, the be all and end all of lamb chops.
Lamb chops are good in Australia, I can tell you that.
Think so. Not as good as Spain.
Very
I
good.
want to meet you. I want to meet you in Spain, and I want you to try their lamb chops. I have to tell you, I've had Australian lamb chops, but Spain is way better.
But you have to have them in Australia.
You have to have an Australian.
They ship
No,
them
actually, my husband was in the Navy, and Australia couldn't sell their lamb to anybody, and our government bought them, and the Navy bought them, and my husband lived on lamb chops and lamb hamburger and everything else. And really, it was not really. You have to come to Spain, and seriously, I want to challenge you to come to Spain with us
I accept
and try the lamb chops,
Okay,
because.
we'll have a taste off.
We'll have a taste off in
Okay, so
Australia.
call me when you come to Spain, because I will go with you and we will try the lamb chops.
Oh, okay.
They are way better than you could ever imagine.
Travel plans here, which is exactly part of the sanity that we're trying to accomplish here.
But this red wine is really very good.
Very good, Craig. Good red. You picked a really good red.
It is good. I mean, I don't see I don't really taste the forest floor, and I did finish this one. It's quite good. And of course, I'll have to finish what's in the decanter as well later.
Claro.
Maybe, but we can't drink them all. There's a whole weekend ahead of us.
I don't
So
know.
Craig, I have a question.
Okay, question?
Yeah, Craig. So we don't have the exact match on the Rioja, but we're also drinking a Rioja that is a 94 pointer from James Suckling. So James Suckling says, never do this. Like lift it. You're supposed to look at the color, but he says, never lift your glass up like that to look at the color. Why does he say that? I don't understand.
I can't see how you lifted it.
Well, he would lift it. I often lift up to look at the color, and he says that's amateurish. Don't do that. I'm trying to figure out why.
I think it's.
I don't know the answer to that. I could make a joke based on his name or something like that. But I don't know. I always thought you look at the glass like on an angle like this. I don't know. About
Right. Well, you're right. You and James are right. I'm wrong. So I don't know why.
I always thought like, I don't know. I don't know why.
That's a good question, though. We have to get that answer.
I'll research that. I was always taught to look that way. Maybe it was James who told me. I don't know. I don't remember.
So I don't know about the lamb chops.
Like your Muga, 94 points. I mean,
Yeah.
Muga is readily available. You could find it in places. I've actually had. It was interesting. I was in China in 2002. It was after this trip, and they had all these wines, and the Chinese, they order expensive Bordeaux and then they put 7-Up in it. And then when you make fun of them, they're like, you can't do that. It's a wine. It's beautiful. They're like, well, you guys put milk and honey and lemon in our teas. And you're like, yeah, you're like, all right, touche. I understand. But I went with an Australian, ironically, not to talk lamb chops again, but I went with an Australian who was on the project with me, and we went to a place right outside. We had a view of the Forbidden City. It was like one of these super nice places in China at the time. I said, let's get a bottle of wine. And that's when I ordered a Muga. Every other bottle in the wine was like $200, but Muga was like 50. And I was like, let's get the Muga. I've been there. It's good. Like, I mean, I know that place is good versus other Riojas. A lot of times I see Riojas in the supermarkets. We have Winn-Dixie, we have, Publix here. And a lot of those Riojas they're not doing it. They're just not. And I don't know how they're cheaply made or something, but they don't taste the same. But Muga seems to deliver with points in some of their, special Riojas here. So that's good. I'm glad you found yours 94-pointer as well. It was pretty good.
So Blanca, what about all this talk about lamb chops? So what about Iberian ham? What about Serrano?
Of course. That's my appetizer every single day.
There you go.
It's the perfect combination with this wine also. Actually, my region is the one that makes the ham of Teruel, which is the original denomination of the ham in Spain. So we eat ham every day. And it's perfect for the wine. For the wine tasting, just a little bit of ham, which is salty enough, has the salt to taste these wines.
Nice.
I find it was interesting that lamb chops was on there, but the ham would be my first choice in Spain as well, the Iberico ham. I mean, because you just can't get it here the same way. Actually, we found a place in Miami that has them, and we were there recently, and we got like a bunch of Spanish products, from white asparagus to like their anujo to like all sorts of things that we've appreciated out of Spain.
I think the difference of our ham is because our weather is really dry. So our ham dries differently in each country. That's what it makes it different.
They also talk about the acorns that the pigs eat, or the Ibéricos eat, the certain sect, like their actual food. I mean, we are what we eat. And there's a lot of, I remember reading about the Spanish diet for their certain hams are actually what helps make them so tasty. And I don't doubt it. I mean, we could go from corn-fed to grass-fed beef, and you could notice a difference. So I'm sure that there's elements to that as well every element, the weather, the sun. We love the Spanish sun. This wine would probably not be for out in the sun, it's for after the sun. But definitely when you have your meats and your games afterwards, it worked out well. But, all right, so we only have one more. It was a very interesting wine. We're going to go to Hungary. So I said that we had 6 Hungary. So why did I choose 6 wines? I was thinking that this morning, but of course, 6 to me was then shipping was free from the company. So I was like, all right, we'll make it a 6-pack, right? I mean, very simple math. Could have did 5 or 6, but I'm like, I'm going to get another one. Why not? So I searched around the countries and in my calendar, and I found Hungary had this wine, and I knew nothing about this wine at all. I never heard of it. I didn't even really realize that Hungary made wines. Like I was like, it would never cross my mind. But what's very interesting about it was I saw this one, and it was one of the only ones on there, and it's even a small bottle. And people I don't think were able to get it because it was sold out. It's hard to find. This is from 2013. But it was referred to as the nectar of the gods. It's got 98 points from folks. I've never had a 98 pointer. This will be my first taste with a minerally finish. If you notice, the alcohol level is 10.5 on the one side. So that tells us, of course, it's most likely going to be sweet, but of course it's going to be sweet because it's a dessert wine. So we have that too. its aging is done in 24 plus months, and like they fill it in certain bottles, but it has to be only second or third usage. So they, after, like, I don't know what they do for the fourth usage. I guess it goes to a different wine, you know, goes somewhere else for that. But I'm gonna taste it, and my partner in crime is gonna taste it. If anyone else has it, you can see how even it flows thick. Feels like sangre, blood. Oh, it's dessert time. It's
Great. Honey.
some honey. I smell some peaches, maybe apricots.
It's really good.
Nectar of the gods.
Oh wow, that's a nice finish. Whew. It's definitely sweeter. It has that sweetest punch. I mean, what's interesting about this, when you go to the next slide too, Maggie. Oh, if you can. I'm sorry.
Oh,
if you go up, wait a second.
Oh, go back to.
Yeah, go back to Hungary, the first one. If you can see where it's from in Hungary too, it's the blue. It's the light blue. So it's over there by Romania, the Ukraine. It's really on that edge of Hungary. And actually, when you go to the next slide, what's interesting is this region is a UNESCO heritage site. And it's because of this, they've been growing grapes here for a long period of time. And what happened is in the 16th century, the Ottoman Empire was rolling around, conquering, not conquering things. And they kept the grapes and everything into harvest. And when they came back to the region, it already seemed like it was about to rot. So it was past its harvest point. So they decided to do something different with it. And then that's when they just started this. This is actually known, and I can't really even pronounce it, the Portugal Azul Gold. The Titokai Putanos Azul Gold. So this is actually known as the oldest dessert sweet wine made. So this goes back in history as one of the classics. So I think some of that probably gives it its couple of points at 98 points. I mean, I've never tasted anything at 98. I have tasted 95 and 96 when we were in Santorini. We had some Vino Santos, and that's, you know, the wine from Santorini, Vino Santo, and they were delicious as well. But they were actually, I thought they were reddish more. I remember they're both, but this is actually very smooth, very good. It's not overly sweet either. They say pour it on dessert if you'd like, or put it on, or have it as an aperitif. And I really think an aperitif might actually be a good call with this, to start out with a little bit of sweetness.
Wow.
In the sun.
Did anybody get it?
Yeah. Does anybody have anything close to this?
I
Or
don't think so.
I don't think anyone could, because it kind of sold out. I think. I know.
Sold out right away.
They were sold out. We couldn't get
We
it.
tried.
And then they got it later on, but I didn't think I'd get it in time for your
It's worth.
I mean, it's definitely. I mean, it's a 500 milliliter, so it's a lot shorter bottle. But it's definitely.
Debbie will get it for us.
I mean, it's for a celebration. It really seems to be that way. It really is. People talk about nectar of the gods, and I actually think I used to hear that joke, but I mean, this is actually quite tasty. It has a little bit of the apricot, like the fruity flavor. I would say peach apricot is what I find. But I mean, it does have a little texture and a syrup as well, but not too much. It's not like maple syrup. I mean, or anything like that nature. The texture is a little bit thicker. Actually, the texture seemed to grow throughout, and even a little bit more than Muga, but not too much. But wow, this is a really good. It's a good way to finish. We'll talk a little bit about the story I'd like to tell. The calendar shot there is Budapest, right? So the Buddha on one side of the bridge, Pest on the other, and so there you have the city. And actually, that's when I was there. I took this picture walking about, and I was actually waiting and finding, because my parents were coming into town on, they were going to take a cruise out of it. It's a great river cruise nation.
I remember that day. That was
The
a
first
great
night I
day.
couldn't find them. So because you get on these cruise
You drank
ships,
too much.
no, and they're river cruises, but they all dock in a row.
Yeah.
And then they're off, and you could actually walk through all of them and go. I was just lost a little bit, and then it rained and it poured, and I got wet, and I was thinking I should probably go to one of those thermal spas, but instead I tucked in and I had myself a good old fashioned goulash.
Oh,
Yeah.
My grandmother used to make a goulash, and she's Germany, but apparently Hungary is goulash capital. So that's where this dish comes from. And there's apparently an entire cuisine. And I say apparently because I'm like, really, they had to give one to Hungary as well. And with the paprika, the gaming meats, it's a real focused destination for cuisine on some people on the culinary scales. And I discovered it in, but the goulash was delicious. I'll give it to him. I did not have this dessert wine there afterwards. I don't think this was on the cruise either. The following night, I got to meet the captain, eat at the table with my parents, and had a great meal on the ship as well. But it was a very Americanized meal. There was a lot of people that were heading out there. But the goulash was definitely something that when you get to Hungary, have some and you won't be hungry anymore, right? I mean, but I left on this slide, I left so much information for people, and I could send this out to you guys as well, but if you guys could read, there's just so much written up about this from the experts. I mean, I can't really add anything. Like, everyone had comments about how amazing this wine is and how it's the nectar of the gods and how it's delicious and how it's done so well. And then the breezes come up, you know, the environment makes it so perfect. I mean, it's like, I almost want to write this and then like take some of these phrases and use them in my own travel writing, because it's like brilliance that was crafted here. So, but that's why I got 98. It got an A+. So that's it. Those are the 6 wines. Those are your holiday wines. You put them under your tree if you want, or definitely taste some. Hopefully you guys learned a little bit tonight, got a little flavor for some of these destinations, got a little bit of travel experience, a little bit about the wines. And if you guys have a favorite, or if you guys have another destination, I'll throw it out to you guys as well. Is there another wine destination in Europe that's missing from here that you're like, this country is
yeah,
good?
Prague.
But Prague, no. Yeah.
No, Prague does have wine, actually. And actually, our family is involved a little bit with it, more so than the beer side. But I would recommend, if you're going to Prague, first couple of times, you might want to stick to the beers. They do have wines, actually, they do. I mean, they're not far from Hungary and these other nations. So sure. Anyone else have a wine favorite destination in Europe?
Of course, I have a Spanish one. Instead of Rioja, I like also another wine, which is from La Mancha. I don't know if you know the region, Castilla. They have really good wines.
Yeah, right.
What?
I said I know the man from La Mancha. We all know.
Yeah,
La Mancha.
that's the famous one.
Yeah.
There are good wines there too.
She recommends a wine there.
Oh, go ahead.
What?
Did you recommend a wine?
I like, I will put it in the chat. It's called Ribera de Duero. I like the region where it's made. I will recommend it to you. I'll write the words.
Please.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, please put it in there. We'll put a lot of, did you put links?
I did.
All right, yeah, there should be a lot of links, or there will be links in the chat for basically everything I discussed from when I was talking about this podcast or this destination or some information about it. If you just want to read up more about it or some more information as well. Blanca, I almost thought, since I know you, I almost thought you might pick German wines.
Oh, German wines.
That was my
German wines
second
are
one.
the
The Riesling wine is awesome. I love it.
Yep.
Someone else likes German? I didn't hear.
Yeah, that's me. That's
Actually-
Gail. I love German
actually,
wines.
I
The
like
Rieslings,
the hot
Rieslings between dry and sweet, and there's just such a, it's just really broad spectrum of Riesling. So.
Wow.
No, it's true. And you could get those in New York, right? I mean, there's a lot of Rieslings out of New York as well. From the stateside. I don't know if they're as good or comparable, but I know Germany has, just like a lot of times people drink beer there as well. Again, the Travel Through Wine podcast, one of the guests is a big fan of German wines. So
Yeah,
she
no,
talked-
yeah.
The Travel Through Wine podcast is actually the one that was talked about, or got the most downloads this year. I wonder why, like we're all at home drinking wine and traveling through it. It's kind of like the impetus for me to do this actually as well. What's that?
Well, Craig, this is awesome. This is really wonderful and enjoyable. Debbie is Finnish and I'm Danish, so we got no drinking of wine territories in our lineage.
Really?
Oh,
Move south. Gotta move south.
With climate change, though, they're bringing wines further and further north,
well, we'll have to keep
Well,
sending
yeah.
you a few bottles and bring you, slowly bring you right in.
You guys are a lot faster than wine. It takes one bottle, brings you a lot closer to where you're going than a bottle of wine. I'm sure it's a lot stronger stuff in those countries that they put in.
Craig, on the numbers, when you
Yeah.
get to 98, you have two left.
He's
In
hot.
other words, does it go 100 or does it go beyond 100?
No, I've never seen it beyond 100. I can't imagine it would. I think that's the scale.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I just wanted to know if it,
Yeah, no, I did read somewhere that I think someone gave something 100 points. And I think it was just something that passed through like my Twitter feed or something like that. And I never really, I didn't research it. And I was like, I'm sure it's something to do, but I've never tasted something. 98 is as high as I've gone in my own tastes. Before that, it was probably 96. But, this was 95.
you picked out good numbers, I'll tell you that. Great.
These are scoring as well. The Muga was 94. I think this was 92. So these that's good. And I think once you hit over like 88, they'll start to advertise. And so you'll see it in the store on the label. 88 points, 92 points. Like before, anything lower than that, I've never really seen in a wine store.
What do you think?
The best value. Well, I mean, it really depends on where I would go and what I was in the mood for. It's hard for me. Actually, for whatever, this is $20. This is pretty good, the Italian Chianti. I'm not normally a picker of Italian wines, but I find, this is half the price of this. It's probably, you want two of this or one of that. So if I look at it from a value perspective, that might be a great way. I really love the rosé, the Muga, and the dessert wine really well. And I mean, for me, I could never go against Santorini. Like it brings me, it's almost like cheap.
Right.
What they produce, but if it's from that grape in Santorini, I just start thinking of my time there, and it's like, wow, it really transports me. And I think that's a lot of what wine wants to do. It gives you the chance to transport to these countries if you pay attention to where it's from. You pay attention to the year. Like you could look at 2014, you could think when you're drinking that, be like, well, what was I doing in 2014? I mean, no, I know I wasn't wearing a mask, right? But what else was I doing? 2019, I wasn't wearing one. But yeah, you could think like, wow, that's 6 years ago. Those grapes were grown. It's just kind of nice to think like that sometimes. I know wines go back a lot further into time and things of that nature. But most times I'll be drinking things that are in the 2000s for sure.
Wow. Yeah.
But if you go, I just have two more slides there. So just to let you know, everything that's out there. If you like my storytelling and you want to know more about my stories as well, there's a book out there on Amazon that I just published. So it's just gone live. It's about some of my mindset moments that you can find on my podcast. I'll send you the link if you want to get the wines. If you're interested in any of these ones, piqued your interest, buy some. That's great. Also the calendar too.
Good evening.
6 of the
Would you like
images.
a Minecraft shirt?
There's 6 more. No pressure, but people always ask, so I'm putting it up there for you
All right,
guys.
well, excuse me.
Sorry?
Take the recycling.
Okay. Recycle that bottle. He's just muted. That's good.
Oh, all right. And then you go
The
like,
wine worked on Jason. He's having a good time. That was the idea too, Jason. We love it.
I apologize. Little parenting moment.
no, that's great. All right, yeah, one more. There's one more. The last, and that's it. That's me. Those are the wines again. That's it. Hopefully I'm I'm not a total wine expert, not a sommelier. We were having dinner last night, or actually having drinks out. And someone thought I was a sommelier, and I was like, oh, that's nice. Like she valued my wine, but clearly that, I don't have any of the expertise there, except for the fact that I've been drinking wine heavily for 30 years across the globe. And maybe not 30, 20, let's go 25. And I've gone to a lot of wineries actually in multiple continents, definitely multiple countries. So I've really picked up a lot over time and appreciate good wine. I think we found a few here tonight. So hopefully you guys that have had similar wines or had some of these agree. And hopefully you appreciated the time here. And I'd love to just say thank you and wish you all happy holidays. Thanks so much for coming on.
Yeah, we want to say thank
Thank you,
you.
Craig.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
You did a great job.
Nice.
Merci, gracias, and efharisto.
I know all those three languages, which is great. That's a rare occasion for me.
Now we got it. Now, finally, we got a picture.
All right, I gotta take
One more sip. What are you
take
gonna
the
drink?
jacket off. So does someone have a favorite?
This is a post party.
They have multiple ones or no?
I think the Chianti. The Chianti.
That was
Great, a
good.
lot of work.
I agree with Jason.
A lot of work, but a great job.
You should show the- Look at him.
There you go.
Island, yeah, right.
Chianti we didn't do?
Oh,
Are you guys gonna open the
you gotta
Chianti?
open the Chianti.
No,
I mean, if
This
you
is
order
like a
all-
Brunello di Montalcino. Fabulous.
What's that?
Oh.
The Chianti's drinking like a Brunello. It's amazing. I think it's the Merlot. They got 10% Merlot in that wine, so it sure tastes good.
Yeah, that's a good idea. The Merlot gets a bad rap ever since Sideways. But it's really good.
Ever since what?
Sideways.
The movie Sideways.
Yeah, 10% Merlot, yeah. The movie Sideways.
Oh, I didn't see it.
Oh, you got to see it.
Oh, you have to see it.
not if you like Merlot. If you don't like Merlot, if you like Merlot, don't want Sideways.
Right.
I used to drink it
No,
all
it's
the
so
time,
funny.
and then it got too sweet for me. Something.
Yeah.
No, yeah. If you watch, it's a funny scene. Sideways is a great movie. There's like 6 great scenes and 6 scenes that are hard to watch, but it's overall, I think it's worth watching over not worth watching.
Yeah, it's worth it. I've seen it maybe 10 times.
Oh, well.
Yeah, those scenes talks about why she likes wine is just, it's actually, I'll plug it one more time, but if you go to the Traveling Through Wine, I talk about those scenes and actually little videos on YouTube of 2 of my favorite scenes from Sideways are actually on there because it is such a great, it's such a great movie.
I like to think about the life of wine.
How it's a living thing. I like to think about the year the grapes are growing.
Yeah.
I like to think about the people that tended and picked the grapes. And if the sun was shining, if it rained.
You got it.
I think each country has different,
He's got it. He covered it
Wines.
all.
and we have different foods with the wine. They're all great. They're all great.
No, it's also interesting because you could have totally done this differently. In Portugal, I could have had the dessert wine with the port. France, I could have went to the Bordeaux, more thing. Italy could have went to like a, something in the white wines, the Pinot Grigio. And France, well, Greece, I think, I don't know how far you could go with Greece. I think we went where we should go. My opinion, Greek wines that I've drank, and stay with the Assyrtiko grape.
You did.
As well.
Yeah,
But
that
yeah,
grape- I heard that grape is also in southern Italy.
It probably is in southern Italy and some of the dry islands. They're not, it's not much different. Some of the volcanic soil, I think maybe Sicily. There's another wine I like called Planeta from Sicily. It's a white wine.
Good choice.
I've had it a couple times and it's actually really good, but it's grown in volcanic soil as well. But it wasn't the Assyrtiko grape. But I wouldn't be surprised if they grew it there, of course.
Mm. Yeah,
Craig, I applaud you.
very nice.
Very good job. Nice.
I just want to say thank you very much for everyone coming on. Again, this will be recorded. It was recorded, so we'll stop the recording soon. And then if anyone wants it, you can hit me up for it. I'll probably put it on YouTube so you can see it there. And like it or comments.
Great.
Okay.
With all the links.
Good thing we're a black mark.
Yeah, we're a black mark. Yeah, we didn't come out of the chute yet. We're coming.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on with that.
I don't know
Yeah,
either,
we'll take a look.